Welcome to Healthy Cells, Healthy You. I'm your host, Janet Walker. I've been working in the healthcare community for 30 years, and for 16 of those years, I've been a writer and producer for the award-winning national PBS health information programs, American Health Journal, and Innovations in Medicine. We've interviewed thousands of doctors, scientists, and researchers on every topic related to health, medicine, and medical technology. You can watch current episodes of Innovations in Medicine on your local PBS channel, or you can stream our programs on the American Health Journal channel, the Better Health channel, and TV Healthy Kids. This podcast is sponsored by the good folks at Life Farm Incorporated, a company whose innovative cellular repair products are backed by extensive science, research, and clinical studies. Are those butterflies in your stomach from love or from something you ate last night? I have a gut feeling that today's episode is about something that you or someone in your life is concerned about: gut health. Over the past decade, researchers have discovered connections between the gastrointestinal tract and a whole host of physical processes and ailments. Taking certain gut-friendly measures, like eating probiotic foods or taking a quality probiotic supplement, can keep not only your gut, but your entire body healthy. In today's episode, I'll be talking again with Dr. Felicia Stoler. Dr. Stoler is one of the most sought-after nutrition and fitness experts in the U.S. She earned her Master of Science degree in Applied Physiology and Nutrition from Columbia University and her Doctorate in Clinical Nutrition from Rutgers School of Health Professions. She's board certified in lifestyle medicine and has a private practice in New Jersey. Dr. Stoler is a college professor and public speaker. She was the host of TLC's groundbreaking program, Honey, We're Killing the Kids. Last time, Dr. Stoler talked to me about the pillars of lifestyle medicine, blue zones, and intermittent fasting. Today, we'll learn about the importance of dietary fiber and probiotics. We'll also talk to Dr. Stoler about her book, Living Skinny and Fat Genes: The Healthy Way to Lose Weight and Feel Great. Welcome back to Healthy Cells, Healthy You. Thank you for joining us again, Dr. Stoler.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Stoler, the last time you joined us, we talked about pillars of lifestyle medicine, blue zones, and intermittent fasting. Today, I'd like to talk about fiber and digestion, but also I'd love to talk about your book, Living Skinny and Fat Genes: The Healthy Way to Lose Weight and Feel Great. So welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me back.
The Healthy Cells, Healthy You podcast is all about health at a cellular level, and of course, our DNA factors into that. So it's fascinating to me that your approach to health and diet starts with our genes. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, I'll tell you what it really came from. I remember being at a presentation, and it was like an image of like a cardiologist that is sitting with somebody and says, the person saying, "Fat genes run in your family." And the doctor goes, "No, nobody in your family runs." So I think about how so many people blame their genes for their weight. And I came from a family of obese people. So I say that there was a little bit of, it hitting close to home for me. But as I went through graduate school and I learned a lot about the impact of, is it nature or nurture? There are some things that are in our genes, but there is so much more that is all about the environment. And by the environment, I don't just mean, like pollutants or toxins in the environment. If you're exposed to things that are unhealthy, I mean the environment of how were you raised? How, one of my very first clients, I asked to write a food journal, had them write a food journal. That's what I learned in grad school. I still have people write food journals because I need to understand how they eat in real time. Because when you do a 24-hour recall or you just tell somebody, like, we know that those are not accurate at all. So somebody actually literally going through the effort of writing down every single thing that they eat for 5 days. By the last day, he's writing, not the last day, the fourth day, he said, my mom they're Italian, they have a Sunday supper, and, the meatballs are the size of your head. And I can't even say it on here, you'd have to bleep me, but he said, now I know why I'm such a fat blank. because he literally had to write down everything he ate. And to me, this guy was eating what would be the equivalent in my mind of 2 entrees at every meal.
Wow.
Which explained why he was so overweight, but he was conditioned that way. When we get accustomed to and eating that way, we become used to that. That is our normal. Very few babies are born obese, right?
Right.
So where does the obesity come from? We tell moms you have to give your kids X amount of formula every so many hours, instead of, if a baby's nursing and if they turn away from the breast and they stop eating, or they turn away from the bottle, it means they're full. We have damaged people's satiety cues, or their hunger cues, because they got to be on a clock instead of eating when they're hungry. And I mean, granted, you can't always eat when you're hungry. And, sometimes when adults are hungry, they're really dehydrated and they don't drink enough water. And so, sometimes there's a little bit of that at play, and we're not all so brilliant at understanding our cues and what those mean. And those cues also don't mean that we're going to necessarily choose healthy things either, right? I tell people not to go to the grocery store when they're hungry, because they don't always make the best choices. Why do you think there are candy bars at the cash register?
Right. Well, and, coming from an Italian family, food is love. Exactly. And that's what you want to give to your kids. That's what you want to give to your guests. And the more people eat, the better it makes you feel, because they're loving your food and you're loving them.
And you're very lucky that you have a wonderful relationship with food. Some people don't have good relationships with food. Some people, maybe they don't have good experience with cooking food or access to food, or maybe there was too much stress in their family at mealtime. When people come together, you could use that as a good time. But some people, it's traumatic. And I never really appreciated that until I did some of my training at an inpatient eating disorder program. And this one patient, I'll never forget, she said mealtime was when, my parents grilled us about our schoolwork or yelled at us about other things. And, you don't realize that, there's that like a response. It's like a Pavlov's dog kind of thing, where if every time you sat down, there were these topics that made you want to cringe, like maybe your relationship with food wasn't really healthy or good. But I hear you on that, the whole food thing, because I'm a big foodie and I love to enjoy food, and I love to cook food. I love to entertain, and I love to, I'm not entertain and cater. I like to really literally create everything and serve it, because it gives me pleasure to see other people enjoying the fruits of my labor.
Nice. Me too. Me too.
I just wanted people to get out of the notion of, blaming their genes for their life, and knowing that you can life is about choice. And there are a lot of choices that you can make. You can choose to, choose different foods for the most part, choose different beverages, make better for you choices. You can choose to move or to sit, and even people that have mobility issues can find other ways to do exercise, because it's not just about how you look. It's about what's good for your body. We know that the value of exercise is good for your mental health. It's good for your cardiopulmonary system. It's good for maintaining muscle mass and bone density, helping to lower cholesterol, it actually helps with blood glucose levels over time, because if you exercise regularly, it forces glucose into the cells in the absence of insulin. So you don't require insulin as that gatekeeper into cellular health. And so again, exercise is not, I like to tell people, think about exercise like brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, showering, bathing, whatever it is that you do regularly for your body, try to find a way to do something. And it doesn't have to be in a gym. It can be house cleaning. It can be doing gardening, something as simple as even going for a walk. I just finished, almost done reading Sanjay Gupta's book about the brain and Alzheimer's and aging. And he talks about a lot about exercise. So I just skim through it because I know all that. But, especially with Alzheimer's, you look at, the aging brain and what is beneficial for aging and being physically active. That's why I try to use physical activity instead of exercise, because the word physical activity is less threatening mentally and emotionally to people and a little bit more inviting. So I've learned over time, it's like how you use those vocabulary. You can either turn people off or turn them on.
So talking about your lifestyle plan in the book, is that customized based on someone's genetic makeup?
Well, what I did in my book, which I actually would love to do an updated version of, because in my book, I was very specific about calorie ranges. I know some people still feel comfortable having calorie ranges because they don't feel confident in their own ability to choose or to eyeball portions. But it was really specific about understanding your gender, your height, your weight, your goals, and what that means in terms of calories. And really, it wasn't so much about being so calorie restrictive. It's about understanding what type of portions from each of the food groups makes up a full day's worth of food, because most people don't even know what a portion is. Portion isn't what's served to you at a restaurant. And if you're eating at a restaurant, you're not seeing a nutrition facts label to know how many servings are on that plate. And I can assure you, most restaurants serve super large portions where, you're getting way more than you need. And so it was just about trying to teach people to be more aware of the choices that they make. So I think what I would do differently is be a little bit less prescriptive now, as I've been doing this for another 10 years of private practice and seeing where science is at. People think science is a very black and white place. And what we know is that science evolves, and it evolves. And it's not that science changes drastically. It's that our understanding of science changes if we've been able to collect data and look at cause and effect, if we've been able to have like new equipment or testing modalities to be able to test and examine, review, and look at things even on a cellular level better, that's why people get confused about, they feel like science flip-flops. Fat would be an example of, we told people not to eat fat, that it's okay to eat fat, and what fat should it be? And, think about how many people went from butter to margarine, and then we saw rises in heart disease. And that really caused, the scientists to go, well, what is it that's different? What was it about the margarine versus the butter that was different? And it was trans versus saturated fats. And then it's like, oh, next thing you know, in the 90s, trans fats had to come out of foods because this man-made thing that was meant to keep a liquid fat stable at room temperature or solid at room temperature, the human body couldn't break it down. And that's really what the problem was. So now trans fats are out and sat fats are somewhat back in. And, people get confused. I mean, everybody can't be a food label scientist to know exactly what they need. And that's where, I teach people about label reading, but I don't want people to develop another form of OCD where they just don't have that training for it. I mean, I ended up going to a dietitian and exercise physiologist because I was having struggles in my 20s. I read all these magazines and books, and this woman literally said to me, Felicia, you don't understand how the human body works. You don't understand the physiology of the body. You read a lot, it makes sense, and then you go to the next thing and you do the next extreme thing, and it doesn't help.
So talking about science in our foods, how important are whole foods and how important are organic foods?
I am not somebody who insists that people eat organic. And the reason why is that I don't think people really understand, A, how food is made, B, what it means in terms of organic, and C, like organic foods do have other pesticides in them. They do have other antifungals. There are other things in there that are not as, quote, pure as people think, but that's okay. It's so that we don't end up with foodborne illnesses. Every time there's an E. coli breakout from some organic food, it's because, breaking news, folks, you know what they use as fertilizer on organic farms? They use fecal waste from cows, usually, and so that's what it is. For a lot of times, fertilizer is poop, not human poop, but we use animal poop. And that's where the nitrogen comes from. And that's okay. People have been doing that for thousands of years, but understanding that I live in New Jersey. It's the Garden State. I've talked to a lot of local farmers, and they can't even afford to do the organic certifications because it's very expensive. Sometimes it's cost prohibitive for them in terms of labor and in terms of what is required. And they just don't have the manpower or the opportunity. And one of my professors at Columbia, she was a leader. Her name is Joan Gussow. She was a leader in nutritional ecology in the 70s. She started talking about that. And she said, it is more important to eat seasonal and regional and local And she really like burned this into our brains about the importance of it because, and I say this to people all the time, I want to eat food from local farmers so that those farms remain food producers instead of becoming shopping centers, right?
Right,
or other
right.
homes. We are going to have a shortage of food and fresh water on this planet by 2050. So,
Scary.
that's where some of these folks were asking me about the whole, plant protein thing versus, I said, just get people to eat smaller portions. We still have an obesity problem in this world, folks. Like, we're not starving and we don't want to get there, but people should eat a little bit less, of their portions and maybe eat like more things like nuts and seeds, right? Do you eat peas as pea protein or do you eat peas as the whole pea?
As peas, yeah.
Think about it. Pea protein's really hot and sexy right now, but I know lots of people that won't eat peas because they thought they're too high in carbs. They're starchy carbs. We used to, make people crazy. Don't eat peas, don't eat carrots, don't eat potatoes, don't eat bananas. They're starch, they're starch, they're starch. Where do you think all this protein's coming from? Plants, which are starch. Starch is the starches and fibers, which I know we want to talk about, are really the structure of plants. Right? We have bones, right? We have a matrix. We have bones, and then we got skin on the outside to keep everything in. And plants use fibrous, starches and fiber to basically be that structure of the plant, to hold those cells intact and all those yummy nutrients that we want to get.
Let's talk a little bit about fiber and digestive health. And then I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about a product called Digestive 3 Plus that our sponsor Life Farm produces. Why is fiber so important in our diet?
Well, I always say fiber is my other favorite F word after Felicia. So the reason why fiber is so important is, well, A, if you're eating it, you're hopefully eating more plants. So we get back to the whole plant thing again. But really what we know about fiber, and I'm going to tell you some facts here. The recommendation for fiber intake for adults is at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. And the reality is that most people eat less than 10 grams of fiber a day. So you don't get fiber in beef, chicken, poultry, or fish. It's only found in plants. Anything that came from a plant, from the ground, from a tree, the fruit of something off of a vine, that is where fiber is found. So not only is it the structure of plants, but what it is so great at is really helping our digestive tract, because there's a lot of things going on in our digestive tract. Number one, people talk about like this roughage and this idea of cleansing or, doing a cleanse or a detox, those cells that have to come off the lining of our GI tract. I mean, fiber helps with that, number one. Number two, it helps to remove cholesterol from our body. So it will bind to cholesterol that may be in our diet in a mixed meal so that it is not allowed to permeate into the small intestine to go into the bloodstream. So some of that fat is going to go out. What fiber also does is it slows down digestion. So if you think about eating a mixed macronutrient meals, and macronutrients are carbohydrates, protein, and fat. If you eat carbohydrates only without any fiber, like if you drink a glass of juice that has no pulp and no fiber in it, it will go into your stomach and empty out of your stomach into your small intestine very rapidly. When you have protein, when you have fat, and when you have fiber, it slows down that digestion process. So people talk about like a rapid uptake of blood sugar. This will help slow that process down. So it slows down a meal if you have more fiber in your diet. And what we also have learned, as scientists have spent more time looking at fiber, is it does something really special. It feeds the good bacteria in our gut. So we have these good bugs in our belly that help with digestion and help us to maintain health. And they get hungry too. And they need to be fed. And what they live on is fiber. So a lot of times people take probiotics. The whole idea of a probiotic working by itself, it works most effectively with fiber present. So I'll give you a really easy analogy. Somebody explained this to me and I've been stealing it. I don't even know who told me this in the first place, but think about fiber's role in digestion and health and probiotics. Like probiotics, think of as seeds. Let's say I have seeds for a plant and I put it on a glass table. No sunlight, no water, no nitrogen. How's it going to grow? It's going to stay, right? Like think about the easiest thing too is think about like dried rice, right? You've got rice in your pantry and it doesn't do anything when there's no water or there's nothing going on with it. So probiotics by themselves, that's how they act. They need to be fueled. So by taking probiotics with some fiber present and available for uptake is the best way for that probiotic to be the most effective and efficient at doing what our bodies needed to do.
Interesting. I never really considered how important fiber was in our diet. I think, oh, that's for really old people. They need to, take fiber.
Go to the people who only think about fiber in terms of bowel movements.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot to be said for that because people that, okay, so if you look at food and the relationship between disease, right? We know that people that eat higher fiber have lower cholesterol. We know that people that eat higher fiber have less incidence of colon cancer, which is a very dominant cancer. And so you think about why there is cancer. So fiber does create bulk to the fecal mass, which is, that it's the result of, everything you eat, what goes in must come out and, how it comes out. Hopefully it's formed and solid. People laugh. I often will pull out poop charts and talk to people about. It's a weird thing in the United States. We don't like to talk about it, but in Asia, it's a very big deal to look at, for moms to look in the toilet and see how their children's bowel movements look because, you and I were talking about food and getting pleasure from food and enjoyment. Well, in some cultures, parents get enjoyment knowing that their kid had a good bowel movement. Like it's a well-formed bowel movement. You think about problems that people have as a result of not going regularly. I mean, diarrhea is and other things like Crohn's and colitis are totally separate topics that I don't think we're going to have time to get into. But just looking at regular digestive health, if fecal mass is stuck in your colon, which is the end of the gastrointestinal tract, for a long time, then that stuff is spending a lot of time in contact with the cells there. And it's not great to be there for days at a time. That's why it's important that you go at least once a day to the bathroom and have a bowel movement. And people don't like to talk about that, but it's so important. So having more fiber allows you to do it. It's not just fiber by itself. You need to have adequate water too, because if you just take a whole lot of fiber supplements and you don't take a lot of water, you can end up with a bowel obstruction.
8 years ago or so, my husband had some serious health challenges and he ended up with a kidney transplant. And so he had to meet with a nutritionist afterwards. And of course, there are certain things that he can't eat because they could introduce bacteria into his system. But the most important thing for his diet was a high fiber diet. And I found that so interesting, that high fiber would have been something that was that important for a transplant patient above everything else.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people will talk to me about fiber and go, I don't have any problems going to the bathroom. I'm like, I get it, but fiber is an important part of keeping your body healthy. I mean, it should be as important to people as protein. We were talking before about high protein diets and people just really take that for granted. So that's where, I try to look for foods that are higher in fiber. And that's really where I want people to look at food labels. For foods that should have fiber, you could look at different pastas. I mean, I think it's wonderful, all these other pastas that are now being made or these other grains or other things like beans or vegetables that are being added to pasta. I remember as a kid, my mom would buy green pasta. It was spinach pasta. And I thought it was such a treat, to eat it. But now they have pasta made out of beans, chickpeas, red beans, black beans. I mean, those things to me are super colon blow. I mean, you look at fiber in cereals. I mean, those are places where people get it. Often people look at things like white rice versus brown rice. I mean, rice in general is negligible. Traditional rice has negligible fiber. So white rice compared to brown rice, I mean, we're talking about 0.5 gram of fiber compared to 0 grams of fiber. That's not the best source of fiber, but some cereals that are out there, that are higher in fiber. That's where I think like looking at food labels are really important. And I want to stress, yes, you should get more of it from food, but there are times where taking a fiber supplement can just help you because, day to day, there may be so much variability in your diet. You may not be able to predict all the fiber you're going to eat. So that's where I think supplementation really comes into play and why I'm a huge fan of supplementation. Yes, I believe you should get as many of your nutrients from food as you can, but the truth is to get clinically significant levels to maintain or improve health, sometimes you need to add supplements to your diet. And that's why I do recommend them.
So with regard to supplements, let's talk a little bit about Digestive 3 Plus, because you mentioned that combining a probiotic with a fiber is a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
So tell me about Digestive 3 Plus.
Yeah, so what I think is very cool about Digestive 3 Plus is that it's got a prebiotic blend of various fibers that come from not just one source, but a few sources, and that they also have enzymes added to it in addition to the probiotic. And, the reason why these enzymes are helpful is especially as we age, our body's organs that produce digestive enzymes sometimes slow down production. So we just don't produce as much as we used to. And the enzymes are necessary to help not only break down food, but to allow the nutrients or the specific ingredients in those foods, like carbohydrates, for example, or fat, to actually get pulled from the small intestine into through the barrier of the intestinal tract, through the bloodstream to go into the liver so the body can use it. So it's like an assistive device that helps to carry specific nutrients on a cellular level into the body. So that's why I think, the product is so cool, because it's not just a probiotic, and it's not just a probiotic and a fiber. With prebiotic, that's what we talk about with prebiotic fibers. But I love the fact that it also has the enzyme blend that's added to it. And I think that's what makes it a completely unique product compared to other products that are on the marketplace.
Nice. And it's capsule form.
And it's a capsule form, so very easy to take. And again, I want to recommend that people should, even though it's a capsule and it seems small, definitely want to consume adequate water. I'd say at least 1 8-ounce glass of water should be sufficient with that.
Is there a better time of day to take probiotics and take fiber supplements? Morning, evening, with meals?
Well, I do believe for most folks that taking it like early in the day, and again, it depends on the person, is better for you because it's sort of getting the good bacteria sort of primed. It's like people want to know about like fueling exercise, whether or not they should eat before they exercise, or, sometimes they need to and sometimes they don't. It really depends. But this is a great way to make sure that you're pretty much waking up the bacteria in your belly, making sure that they're basically like fuel to get ready for the nutrients that are going to come in throughout the day and sort of keep them going. So that would be a reason why. But like sometimes some people may want it at night. In this particular product's example, maybe not for that purpose, but some people have constipation issues where taking fiber is incredibly important for bowel movement. So not that you want to do it when you go to sleep, but you may want to do it when you wake up. So it allows that amount of hours for it to basically go through your system to stimulate your GI tract so that you can have a bowel movement in the morning.
One thing that's interesting to me with probiotics, and this product doesn't like highlight how many billions and billions of bacteria, but you see that on store shelves all the time. This one has 10 billion, this one has 50 billion, this one has 100 billion. What is that? And should people pay attention to that?
A lot of it is just, again, it's sort of like created by the industry trying to create a demand. I think it also confuses consumers. I don't even, as much as I'm an expert in digestive health, I have colleagues that are just specific experts in probiotics. Like, I admittedly don't know all the finite details and the minutia. I have to know a lot about a lot of things, and that isn't something that I've chosen to focus on because it's really not that important at the end of the day for what I do in terms of educating people. What is really cool about this product is that it's a particular blend. Instead of saying it's got 20 different varieties of probiotics, which sometimes, like, and I get it, like people make these products, there are reasons why somebody might want to use it, and their brand, and a lot of times brands are creating it to create their own unique selling point. And having vast diversity of probiotic strains does not always work well for people. In fact, for some people, it can create situations where they end up with diarrhea and they end up having other unintended consequences of consuming too many probiotics without all the other stuff that goes along with it, which again is why just popping lots of probiotics all the time isn't great. And another reason why people take I think people should take probiotics and prebiotic fiber all the time. So that should be a daily ritual. But for folks that end up, for example, taking an antibiotic, so think about that word, antibiotic, right? That helps to kill germs, right? And bacteria. Well, guess what? It kills the good ones too, which is why people or doctors or pharmacists will often recommend with some antibiotics that you take probiotics to help the body reestablish we call it the gut flora, or the good bacteria that belong in your belly.
Excellent. And then, so aside from natural fiber and from plants and vegetables, and this product, which is a wonderful product in capsule form, there's another supplement form of fiber.
Right. The other way to get fiber is to get it as a powder. So people may be familiar with products like Benecol or Metamucil. There's another ingredient called sun fiber, and I used to do work with that company, and I helped create a product called Regular Girl, which is all about helping people be regular. And it was really an opportunity to really put together fiber in a way that was convenient for people. I like the whole grab and go aspect, which is why I also like, the Life Farm product, in that it's a capsule. People are always buying these tubs of things, and, tubs are not easy to travel with. Tubs are not things, how often is somebody going to take that product and maybe put it in a Ziploc bag or a little container and take it to work with them, or take it when they're traveling. So right. Convenience is really important. And, part of why why I helped work on this other product, again, like digestive health, is so key and critical to what I do. And I believe in it, because there's science supporting it. And because of what I do for a living, it's an important part of health and well-being. But, I wanted to sort of have like a whole little play on words, because as we talked about before, we don't like to talk about things like that in this country. Nobody wants to talk about their stomach problems, or if they have problems going to the bathroom, and my kids are like, Mom, it always ends up having toilet conversation with you, or people will say to me, oh my God, I didn't mean to talk to you about that. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, no, I talk about it all the time. That's why, the whole idea of calling something like a regular girl is, women talk about this stuff more than men do. And women, because of hormonal reasons and aging and things that go on during aging process, and how our hormone levels change over time, it does impact us. And also think about stress in the stomach and that gut brain relationship. Women carry a lot of our emotions in our stomach. I don't know why, we just do. And you're nodding your head and you get it, like we do. So, and that's a non-flavored product. And then, things like Metamucil and Benecol, they're plain. Those are different types of fibers. Like those fibers gel up in water. If you don't consume them quickly, you may not want to consume them at all, So, different, there's literally different strokes for different folks. And, so I understand why those fibers are there. Those are personally not fibers that I necessarily encourage, because I don't like the sweeteners and the flavoring that go into it. But
so can someone combine the products and have the capsule with probiotics and the Digestive 3+, and also the Regular Girl fiber?
Absolutely. And if they want to have Metamucil or Benecol, they could do that too. Or other, I know that there's some other products. I've seen some other products that are corn-based fibers. I mean, look, I'm not a fiber snob. Whatever you can do to get more fiber in your diet is important, and, but I think what's important is if you want probiotics with fiber. And again, understanding some people have IBS and they have issues with digestive health, which, we don't have time to talk about, but like people sometimes need to use a low FODMAP diet as a therapeutic diet. So there are very specific fibers and carbohydrates and other nutrients that are contraindicated when somebody's trying to determine what their food sensitivity is. So, that's why I say different strokes for different folks.
First, I want to say, Dr. Stoler, thank you so much for being with us and spending so much time talking to us today. I really, really appreciate it. You're just a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And listeners, if you want advice to overcome genetics that might be holding back your weight management and good health by making good nutrition and lifestyle choices, you can get a copy of Dr. Stoler's book, Living Skinny and Fat Genes, The Healthy Way to Lose Weight and Feel Great, through Amazon or Barnes & Noble. In the book, you'll also find quick and easy recipes for nutritious meals, and you may even want to take your copy to the grocery store for its list of food substitutions, best sources of proteins, and superfoods. Thanks so much for listening to Healthy Cells, Healthy You, with me, your host, Janet Walker. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and tell your friends. Together, we'll build healthy cells and a healthy you.